If you're keeping layer hens right now, you're probably spending more on feed than you ever planned, and you're not alone. Feed prices across the U.S. have been climbing steadily, and a lot of backyard chicken keepers are quietly wondering whether the eggs are still worth the monthly cost. Here's what most people don't know. There are four birds that were standard on American homesteads long before layer hens took over. Birds that find most of their own food, lay consistently through the year, and cost a fraction of what hens demand every single month. They weren't replaced because they stopped working. They were pushed aside when commercial agriculture needed families buying feed instead of raising birds that simply didn't need it. In this video, I'm bringing all four back, and by the end, you'll have a clear picture of which one actually fits your life and your property. If food independence matters to you, subscribe to this channel. I share forgotten systems like this every week. Let's get into it. Before we get into the four birds, let me be honest about something. This isn't about hens being bad. A lot of people keep hens and genuinely enjoy them. That's completely fine. But here's what most backyard chicken guides won't tell you. Modern laying breeds were engineered specifically for commercial environments, places with purchased grain, artificial lighting, and manufactured supplements already factored into daily operating costs. Take those inputs away and production drops. Not to zero, but enough that you feel it in your wallet every month. The foraging instinct has been largely bred out of the most popular laying breeds sold in the U.S. today. They were never designed to sustain themselves on open land, and that limitation becomes very real when feed prices rise and your egg-to-cost ratio quietly falls apart. The four birds in this video were built for a different reality, one where farmers couldn't afford to buy grain every month. So these birds had to work with the land instead, and they did for generations. This isn't about perfection. It's about having practical, self-sufficient options that actually fit real life. Let's start with the first one. The first bird most people overlook is the Khaki Campbell duck, and that oversight is costing a lot of American homesteaders more money than they realize. Here's the forgotten truth about this bird. Khaki Campbells are among the most productive laying birds ever developed, consistently outperforming many commercial chicken breeds in annual egg output. But what makes them genuinely different is something layer hens simply cannot do. They actively feed themselves. Given access to any open, wet, or grassy land, Campbells forage intensively for insects, earthworms, slugs, aquatic plants, and small invertebrates, significantly reducing, and in well-managed setups, nearly eliminating the need for purchased grain. The quiet survival problem they solve isn't complicated, the feed bill that never stops. Now you might be thinking, I don't have a pond. That's a fair concern, and it's worth addressing directly. Khaki Campbells don't need a full pond to thrive. A shallow stock tank, a small water trough, or even a naturally wet section of yard provides enough for them to forage and drink comfortably. Many people across suburban and semi-rural U.S. properties have made this work on less than a quarter acre. The water need is about access, not acreage. And this is where most layer hen keepers start to question what they were told. The reason this system worked for generations had nothing to do with special knowledge or equipment. It worked because it matched the reality of everyday rural life, limited land, unpredictable seasons, and modest resources. Campbell ducks don't need electricity, specialty feeders, or climate-controlled housing. A dry, predator-resistant shelter handles most of their needs. That said, local predator pressure by foxes, raccoons, and hawks in particular is something every keeper in the U.S. needs to plan for seriously. It's manageable, but it's not something to overlook. The ancestral approach was straightforward. Homesteading families had a small patch of open or wet land near the home. They released their ducks in the morning, let them range freely through the day, and collected eggs at dawn. Campbells reliably lay in the early morning hours, which makes collection easy and consistent. What kept the system alive across seasons was simply allowing the birds to follow their natural foraging instincts. They self-balance their own nutrition. The land does most of the work. Over time, this didn't just provide eggs. It built the kind of stable, sustainable food security that entire families depended on. Campbell ducks maintain strong laying consistency even through winter months, a season when most chicken breeds slow down or stop entirely. For any household focused on year-round food independence, That reliability is a genuine investment that pays for itself repeatedly. The nutritional value adds another layer of practical benefit, especially for older adults. Duck eggs are larger than chicken eggs and richer in omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B12, and choline, nutrients directly linked to heart health, cognitive function, and sustained energy levels. This is a genuinely healthy upgrade that costs less to maintain than what most people are already keeping. One detail most people miss is that Khaki Campbells were selectively developed to rarely go broody, meaning they don't interrupt their laying cycle to sit on a nest for weeks at a time, which is a costly and frustrating habit common in many other breeds. That single trait made them one of the most productive, low-drama birds in homesteading history. They didn't disappear because they failed. The system that replaced them just needed you dependent on something they never required. The second bird works differently from the Campbell, but the result for your homestead is surprisingly similar, and in some ways even broader. The forgotten truth about guinea fowl is that they are one of the only domestic birds that genuinely sustain themselves almost entirely from the land. They consume ticks, grasshoppers, beetles, weed seeds, and a wide range of agricultural pests in volumes that would cost significant money to manage through any conventional pest control approach. The survival problem they solve isn't just an egg problem, it's a whole property problem. Guinea fowl provide continuous, free pest management and consistent egg production at the same time with minimal grain input required. This dual value was deeply understood by homesteaders across the rural American South, West Africa, and Mediterranean Europe. The guinea fowl wasn't simply a food source. It was a working member of the homestead, contributing every single day in multiple directions simultaneously. Now here's the part that actually makes this work. Guinea fowl evolved in the semi-arid grasslands of West Africa, where food scarcity was a constant reality. That origin shaped a bird with exceptional foraging endurance, strong adaptability, and the ability to thrive on dry, brushy, or low-quality land that most other poultry would struggle on significantly. Average American rural or semi-rural land, even land too poor for a productive garden, suits them well. One honest note before going further, guinea fowl are vocal birds. They have a distinctive, carrying call, especially when they detect movement or sense a threat. That vocalization is actually part of their value as a homestead alert system, and in rural or semi-rural settings, it's rarely a problem. In denser suburban areas, it's worth knowing before you commit. This doesn't make them a poor choice, it just makes them the right choice for the right property. The ancestral approach was grounded and simple. What homesteading families had was open land and a basic roosting structure, sometimes nothing more than a sheltered raised frame or a covered area beneath a tree. What they did was allow guinea fowl to free range during the day, covering broad ground in search of insects and seeds, then secured them safely in the evening against predators. What sustained the system was the bird's strong, natural flocking instinct. Guineas stay together, return to familiar territory consistently, and develop a detailed familiarity with every corner of the land they patrol. Over time, this system delivered measurable, layered value for the whole family. Tick populations dropped noticeably on properties with established guinea flocks, a meaningful health benefit across much of the U.S., where tick-borne illness remains a real concern. Eggs were collected consistently and the birds provided lean, healthy meat as a reliable secondary food source when needed. Guinea fowl eggs carry a higher concentration of quality protein, iron, and B vitamins than many people expect. The meat is exceptionally lean, a genuinely healthy choice for older adults watching heart health or cholesterol. Once established on a property, guinea fowl rarely stray from their known range, making them one of the most naturally self-managed free-range birds in homesteading history. The system runs largely on its own. That's the kind of low-input, high-return investment that's worth understanding. Real quick, if you're finding this useful, a like on the video genuinely helps YouTube show this to people who are searching for real food independence alternatives. And drop a comment below. Which bird has surprised you most so far? The Khaki Campbell or the guinea fowl? I read every single comment here, and some of the best conversations on this channel start exactly that way. We've still got two birds left, and honestly, the next one surprises people the most. Let's keep going. This next one surprises people the most because it's the smallest bird on the list, and also the one that removes almost every barrier most people believe is standing between them and a productive backyard flock. The forgotten truth about Coturnix quail is their speed and efficiency. They begin laying at just 6 to 8 weeks of age, faster than any other widely kept poultry species in the U.S., and they produce eggs consistently throughout the year in a space that would fit in a modest backyard corner, a small porch enclosure, or even a large garage. The survival problem they solve is uniquely relevant for older adults, small property owners, and families without significant acreage. Meaningful, consistent egg production in minimum space with low physical effort and manageable ongoing costs. This wasn't an accident of modern breeding. Coturnix quail have been kept in small courtyard cages and garden enclosures across Japan, China, the Middle East, and Mediterranean Europe for centuries. Elderly homesteaders, single-person households, and small families in dense communities relied on them precisely because they required so little and delivered so much in return. This was a genuinely life-changing system for people with limited land and limited resources, and that practical reality hasn't changed. Now, to be straightforward about one thing, Coturnix quail are not completely maintenance-free. No bird is. They benefit meaningfully from supplemental feed, especially during peak laying season, and you shouldn't expect them to sustain maximum output on foraging alone. But supplemental means exactly that, in addition to a natural diet, not the entire foundation of it. Given access to even a small patch of open ground, quail actively search for seeds, green plant material, and insects. That instinctive foraging behavior reduces purchased grain costs considerably compared to birds that forage not at all. That distinction changes the economics of a small flock over a full year more than most people expect. The ancestral approach was entirely manageable for one person, including older adults. What families had was a small wooden cage or containment pen, kitchen scraps, garden trimmings, and whatever insects or seeds the birds could forage independently. What they did was allow the quail access to a safe, contained, open area each day. What kept the system alive was simple consistency, a modest amount of daily care that required no heavy lifting, no large property, and no specialized knowledge to maintain. The nutritional payoff is exceptional and well documented. Quail eggs are considered a rare nutritional asset. They contain elevated levels of iron, vitamin D, and vitamin B12 relative to their small size. In many traditional cultures across Asia and Europe, quail eggs were specifically reserved for elderly family members and young children precisely because of their concentrated health-supporting properties. Today in the United States, they sell at premium prices at farmers markets and in health food stores, making a small managed flock a genuine investment with repeatable financial return beyond personal consumption. One practical detail that makes Coturnix quail especially valuable for American households is that hens lay prolifically without any rooster present. They are also nearly silent compared to virtually any other productive poultry option, making them one of the only genuinely viable backyard birds for suburban neighborhoods, senior communities on smaller lots, or any U.S. setting where noise ordinances or close neighbors have previously made keeping birds feel impossible. If space or sound has been your barrier, this bird removes both of them at once. And the fourth bird is where things get genuinely interesting, because this one almost disappeared from American homesteading entirely. And the reason it nearly vanished has nothing to do with the bird itself. The forgotten truth about Muscovy ducks begins with something most people don't know. Muscovies are not true ducks in the conventional biological sense. They are a distinct species native to Central and South America, and they were kept by indigenous communities throughout the Americas long before European settlers arrived on this continent. Those communities maintained them for one straightforward reason. Muscovies could sustain a household food system almost entirely without ongoing human input. They forage for insects, aquatic plants, small frogs, earthworms, and even rodents, producing both eggs and exceptionally lean meat at virtually no purchase cost. The survival problem they solve is among the most complete on this list, a self-replenishing, self-managing food source that demands very little from you in return. Now, the realistic picture matters here. Muscovies still benefit from a basic supplemental feeding routine, particularly during colder months or in areas where natural foraging is seasonally limited. They are not entirely input-free under all conditions, but they come closer to it than almost any other domestic bird kept in the United States. And the difference in annual feed costs compared to standard poultry is substantial and consistent. The reason this system sustained itself across generations comes down to the Muscovy's deep biological relationship with natural environments. Unlike commercial breeds engineered for warehouse conditions, the Muscovy evolved alongside slow-moving water, dense vegetation, and open foraging terrain, exactly the kind of environment found across most rural American properties. A farm pond, a slow drainage ditch, a low section of yard that holds water after rain, any of these provide the foundation the bird needs to do what it does naturally. The ancestral management approach was remarkably simple. What families had was access to a water source and basic shelter from weather and predators. What they did was allow Muscovies to range freely through the day, managing their own nutrition through natural foraging behavior. What sustained the system across generations was the Muscovy female's powerful and reliable maternal instinct. She nests, broods, and raises her own young with no human assistance required. A small starter flock replenishes itself naturally season after season, creating a genuinely self-sustaining productive system that largely manages itself once properly established. Over time, a Muscovy flock delivered one of the most complete nutritional profiles available from any single bird on the homestead. The meat is among the leanest poultry options available in the U.S., exceptionally low in fat and rich in quality protein, making it one of the most genuinely healthy meat choices for older adults managing heart health, cholesterol, or weight. Muscovies also actively reduce fly and mosquito populations around the property through their natural foraging behavior, which is a meaningful, practical health benefit for American families across warmer southern and Midwestern states particularly. One final detail that makes Muscovies uniquely valuable and genuinely underappreciated is that they are nearly silent compared to any other domestic duck or chicken breed. They produce soft, low sounds rather than the loud quacking associated with other duck breeds. This characteristic made them ideal on homesteads where quiet mattered, and it makes them the most neighbor-compatible productive bird on this entire list. If noise has been the single reason you've ruled out backyard poultry before, the Muscovy duck is the honest, practical answer to that concern. Here's something that rarely gets said directly, and it deserves to be said clearly. Every bird on this list survived and delivered for generations, not because of any special technology, ideal climate, or expert management. They survived because they were allowed to be exactly what they naturally were: foragers, survivors, and quiet partners in a system that asked very little and returned to consistently over time. Most backyard bird systems in America start to struggle, not because the birds themselves are inadequate, but because people apply modern expectations to animals that were never built for them. When you introduce full dependency on purchased grain, manufactured supplements, and artificial lighting schedules, you don't upgrade the system. You make it fragile. You create costs that never existed before, and then gradually the knowledge of what actually worked begins to fade. The Khaki Campbell didn't need your feed store to perform. The Guinea fowl didn't need your pest control products to be valuable. The Coturnix quail didn't need a large property to be productive. The Muscovy duck didn't need your involvement to raise its next generation. What all four needed was access to land, water, open space, and the freedom to follow their natural behavior. The more natural the system, the more resilient it becomes over time. That principle is not complicated, but it is consistently underestimated in modern homesteading conversations. Self-sufficiency was never about doing more or spending more. It was always about knowing which systems to trust, and then having the wisdom to let them run as they were designed to. The modern feed industry benefited when that knowledge was forgotten. This channel exists to bring it back. You don't need a large property. You don't need to change everything at once or invest in equipment you don't have. Pick one bird from today, just one. Look into what it naturally needs, what it realistically gives back, and whether it genuinely fits your space in your situation. That's how this kind of knowledge moves from a video into your actual life, one honest, informed decision at a time. If you want more of this, forgotten birds, ancestral livestock systems, and natural food solutions that still hold up in the modern world, subscribe to this channel. Every week, something buried comes back. Thank you for being someone who still values food independence and self-sufficient living. That choice matters more now than it has in a long time. I'll see you in the next one. If this story changed the way you look at the birds on your property, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the history they tried to bury. Plant the seeds of the future. The next treasure of knowledge will be opened soon.